So it really is a fascinating battle just between the Charlie Appleby runners, but the way things are going tonight, we could just see an upset. So I'm going to go with Man of Promise. Chaz with Creative Force. Who is going to win our Alquoz Sprint of 2022? They're nearly all in.
Winton. Creative Force is also set. Air De Valse. Air De Valse wins in and out. Casa Creed, Happy Romance, Mutafawwig. There comes Taxiwala. Casa Creed Winton. They've unloaded Entscheiden. The Case of You now being led forward. Emaraaty Ana and Happy Romance. Emaraaty Ana moves in. Happy Romance. Here comes Mutafawwig. Still got Berneuil to bring up. Case of You, another one still to come forward. Khuzaam. Just checking out Entscheiden here. The Case of You. Lauda Sion is ready. Stop behind the stalls here. So Entscheiden now being led forward again. So everything in order. A Case of You needs to load. Khuzaam and Berneuil. Here's Khuzaam. Berneuil the last one. Yelkoz. Set for a start. Gates are back and they sprinting away. Get Smokin jumped inwards but propelled itself to the early lead. Suesa's in the white colours directly behind. Entscheiden the greys towards the far side, followed by Mutafawwig in the blue jacket and the red cap, joined by Naval Crown. Khuzaam's up the far side. Berneuil's in the yellow and green colours. Emaraaty Ana got just ahead. Lauda Sion, then comes Happy Romance. They race in the middle of the course. Hard up on the outside. Man of Promise in the all blue. Kept company by Creative Force, Taxiwala. Now they all in a bunch. They followed by Air De Valse, who's next best. A Case of You under the outside rail, banging contention. The pink colours of Casa Creed is towards the end of the field. They're halfway through the Alquoz Sprint, and Khuzaam towards the far side. I'd say he's just about the leader. Mutafawwig, Man of Promise. Then comes A Case of You, who's getting into the hunt as well. Happy Romance, a chance in between runners. Further back then to Emaraaty Ana and Taxiwala past the 200. A Case of You lays it down to Man of Promise. Man of Promise trying to get on terms. A Case of You got him on the ropes. Then comes Happy Romance. A Case of You though comes home to win the Alquoz. A Case of You won it. Happy Romance second. Man of Promise third. Fourth close. Naval Crown, Casa Creed involved. Taxiwala. Then came Khuzaam. They were ahead of Mutafawwig. Berneuil was next to finish. Suesa. Lauda Sion. Entscheiden. They were ahead further back of Creative Force. Emaraaty Ana. Air De Valse and Get Smokin.
An Irish winner. Fantastic. A Case of You. He's a classy colt. He won the Prix de l'Abbé. He chased a Man of Promise here last time. That form has been emphatically reversed. William was never able to get there. A Case of You has won that very, very nicely.
No, just follow the stand side all the way through. And I mean, as soon as the front runner started backing up a little bit, you saw Ronan just kind of start asking them and picking it up. And when they passed us word about the furlong pole, maybe a little bit further out, and I mean, Case of You was going to go right by and go right to the winner's circle. And I mean, so happy for trainer Adam McGuinness. He really wanted this one really, really bad. He thought he was live in the Breeders' Cup last year, thought the distance was a little too short for him, and this has been his goal. He he got enough out of that prep race. I mean, he flew at the end of the race last time. Everyone was just looking at Man of Promise, but he was flying to get up for second. And, man, just congratulations to all the connections there on a case of you.
Yeah, owned by Gary Devlin. Aidan McGuinness, as you mentioned, been a big supporter of the Dubai Carnival. He brought over two, Pierre Lapin and Harry's Bar, and neither really did a great deal, if we're honest. Harry's Bar did go home and win since, though, which was good. And then this was the big one, and they always had a plan. He said, we're coming to the Alquoz, we're going to prep for the prep, which is what they did with that little race he won at Dundalk. And that was a very, very good performance. I don't want to take any shine off it, but the rail was undoubtedly a help.
It certainly looked that way, but I mean, credit, by the way, to Happy Romance getting up for second there, passing Man of Promise in the last 50 yards to get up for second.
Yeah, she's such a good filly, isn't she? That's the second time that she's landed a big check, but sadly not being able to win. Happy Romance, obviously third, as we mentioned, the 13.51 in Saudi, and gone one better than that here. And no show from Creative Force, but Naval Crown finished fourth for Charlie Appleby, just ahead of the US Raider Casa Creed.
And those are the horses that had the form. Those are the horses that had been running. It just seemed like it was a little too tough coming off the layoff. I thought the horse would be kind of more ready to fire a big one.
So great story. A Case of You was a buyback by Connections, I think for just €3,000. And he has now won them two big races, and he's already confirmed as a stallion. You know, he won, as I said, that Prix de l'Abbé, which is probably the best sprint, certainly the best 5 furlong sprint in Europe. And now he's come over here, vastly different circumstances, and won this. Prix de l'Abbé's always run on very soft ground, heavy as it was last year. 5 furlongs, Paris Longchamp. Comes here, fast ground, 6 furlongs. What a versatile horse.
I think it really fits him. I mean, his turn of foot really takes off on that hard, firm ground. He's not really slipping and sliding. He was just cruising, running right by us.
Ronan Whelan had a little spell over here a few years ago. Managed to get 3 winners during that time. Well, this will be one of the biggest wins of his career, up there with the Prix de l'Abbé victory, of course. And they kept him pretty busy, as you mentioned. They went over to the Breeders' Cup after that. He ran an excellent 5th behind Golden Pal, and then that race at Dundalk, and then this one. And it's wonderful to have an Irish winner of this race. Soul Power would, I think, be the most recent one to score from the Emerald Isle with Richard Hughes a few years ago.
And is this something where we might see a rematch between Golden Pal and A Case of You in Ascot in a few months' time?
It could well happen, couldn't it? I mean, they'd actually have a choice of races for A Case of You, I'd say. They could go to the newly renamed Platinum Jubilee over the 6 furlongs, 1,200 metres on the Saturday, or they could go to the King's Stand over the 1,000 metres. He is such a good horse by Hot Streak, as we mentioned. It just seems to me to be a thoroughly straightforward horse. And bearing in mind, as I said, he's still an Entire. He's been kept fairly busy. It's his 7th win from 14 starts now, so a strike rate of 50%. And Aidan McGuinness, superb character. They will have a good old party tonight, these Irish.
This horse trained all week long on the training track and just got better and better every day. He just looked the picture as Acclaim Express was trotting by next to him.
Still heartbreaking for Acclaim Express. He didn't manage to get into the race. I'm very happy we got a European winner. I wasn't sure we were going to get one prior to the start of racing today. This one looked earmarked for Godolphin. The Gold Cup looked a little bit too strong, but got one in the end. And it's interesting because the Irish traditionally haven't been all that, well, they have been strong at sprinting, but they, up until very recently, when the Flying 5 at the Curragh was upgraded, they never actually had their own Group 1 sprint. It's been only the last couple of years that they've had that race, so they've always had to go over to England with their better sprinters. This is just such a
an emotional winner circle.
There's Ado on the right. He is brilliant fun. And say he was they were probably a little bit down after bringing over Harry's Bar and Pierre Lapin and really failing to do much at the carnival with those 2 horses. But this one is a really, really special horse. And a lot of people here to cheer him on as well. I hope the hospitality area is primed for later. It's going to get badly hit.
and there's something to be said about making a plan. To come to Dubai, to the World Cup, you have to have that plan in mind. And Adam McGuinness had that plan from the Breeders' Cup. He was going to have the prep at home to the prep over there and then run over here. And when the plan comes to fruition, it's a very, very emotional victory. And Addo and the exercise rider there, Sean, they're in tears, and it's just tears of joy of being able to come here and win the Alquaz on the world stage. It's a very, very emotional experience for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it must be. Here's one of the bigger turf sprints in the world, this one of the richer turf sprints in the world. That's certainly the case.
And we got the kiss.
Yeah, he looks absolutely over the moon. Hopefully he's not too over the moon to speak to Mikey in a moment or two.
Excuse me, guys.
Yeah, vendor buyback was a yearling, 3,000 euros. Could have got you a case of you. The sales a couple of years ago. He's not from a particularly illustrious family. His dam was placed over a mile on the all-weather. She's a sister to a listed winner. But nothing massively jump out at you. He's not the most big or imposing horse either, is he?
No, he's really not. But when you win 50% of your races or higher, you have that will within, and unfortunately they can't measure the size of the horse's heart, otherwise this horse would sell for a lot more than 3,000 buybacks.
Let's hear from our winning jockey.
Good boy. Watch out, guys. Good boy. Thank you. All right, we got Ronan Whelan coming up here in just a moment. He's congratulating lots of people, getting congratulations from lots of people here. Obviously an extremely enthusiastic crowd. A lot of people love Ado McGuinness, and Ronan rode a beautiful race. This horse prepped with a proper second place in the Naval Shiba Turf Sprint, and he comes back here and really improves on the run. Ronan's going to take us right through it in just a moment, but he's got to be over the moon. Ronan, can you take me through it? Just obviously, you had to commit to the rail there, and it looked like you had to use them a little more than you wanted
exactly. The plan was just to let him pop, and he likes to be behind the bridle, and once he's behind the bridle, we know we have him. But I tell you, at halfway, he just, as you said, he came onto the bit a bit with me, and I actually thought I committed too soon, but it was either that or take back, and I knew if you go through our lad's form, he stays 6 well. Yeah. He actually won a 6 furlong Group 3 on soft against what turned out to be Group 1 performers. So we knew he'd stayed a trip well on this ground, and we had the rail, so we weren't going to give it away. And sure, look, he's such a genuine, solid horse, and I can't just thank Ado and all his team. I know there's an outfit that you'll be hearing a lot more of. Like they're doing really well at home, and their attention to detail is second to none. And I just a word from my parents at home and my girlfriend Emma. You know what you call it. They were here for Super Saturday, but they couldn't make it out this time. So just thinking of them now as well.
Well, congratulations. We'll get your quick signature real fast if you can.
No water, gladly.
Thanks to Ronan. Ronan winning on the card tonight. Necessarily predicted that. Ronan Thomas and Ronan Whelan. As we look at it again, quite a raggedy start for a sprint. They usually hit the gates quite well.
I think everyone was trying to figure out how can we get to the stand side. Even here from the second inside draw, looks like they're trying to get outside. Get Smokin was able to make the lead along with the Japanese horse Entscheiden.
We'll never know.
They battled a little bit, but as you see, look at the nearest 6 horses to the stand side. They're all getting as close to the stand side as they possibly can, and it's just kind of a dream trip right here. He's hugging the rail, a case of you, and Casa Creed's kind of drift in behind him, and he's going to run on and run well. I think he runs 5th or 6th. Mana Promise is sitting in a good spot. Really no excuses other than maybe the fact that he just regressed a little bit off that big effort from just 3 weeks ago.
You called it a lot earlier than me. I was still thinking that William Buick was going to get there on Mana Promise, but KZU was never going to stop, was he?
No,
as I mentioned earlier on in his career, he was actually a winner over 7 furlong.
And this is really a really, really big late run from the filly. Happy Romance is going to really come in, and she's farthest away from the stand side. She's about 5 off that rail, and she's going to end up getting second. And that was a battle for second, but a case of you, a clear winner on the night, and certainly a horse that has a lot more going for him. This is not his end game. I think we're going to hear a lot from the case of you this year, which is going to be good fun.
It's such a lovely programme for these sprinters, isn't there? There's not a lot now, Group 1-wise, unless you were going to do something really brave and go to Hong Kong, something like that, but they won't do that, I'm sure. They'll probably wait till Royal Ascot. Why wouldn't you? He's had 3 races now. They go to Royal Ascot, choice of races, as I mentioned. Then there's not a great deal until York. You've got the option of the Dunthorpe. Then at the end of the year, you've got the Breeders' Cup again, and having performed so well there last year, you'd have to think that they'll do that again.
Yeah, I think that was always their plan. I was talking to the connections earlier this week. They had circled the Breeders' Cup. They know that it's at Keeneland this year, which they think will be a little bit better than that Del Mar track, which just doesn't play to them because the Del Mar stretch is so short, and that horse needs a little bit of, just give him a little bit of room to make a move.
Those on that far side really were at a bit of a disadvantage, weren't they? I think it's fairly fair to say. Happy Romance drawn in 6. That does really. She can upgrade her run considerably, can't you? There she is at sort of towards the back of that far side pack at the moment, just sort of edging her way past Emaraaty Ana now.
And it'll be interesting to see where she goes next. Naval Crown also running really well here to finish up strong. I think Naval Crown makes up for the kind of mystifying performance in Saudi. He runs a good race here today.
I don't think it was mystifying in Saudi. He was drawn wide. They had to be kind of aggressive to try and get the lead. I thought he ran a huge race, turned into the straight looking like he was going to win, and the wide draw and the wide trip just took its toll on him. I thought it was a much better race than the form figures suggest. He's not the prettiest sight, is he? Tongue out, covered in sweat, but they won't care about that. He's got the job done and won them the lion's share of $1.5 million here.
He's got the Michael Jordan tongue stick out.
Just a gorgeous little horse, son of Hot Streak. He was a very fast horse himself. Man of Promise, I reckon they'll attribute this to a bit of a regression from Super Saturday.
And that's the concern when it's 3 weeks out and you run that monster performance. It's so weird because you don't want to lose anytime you run, but you're just afraid if you run too well. And that race was the performance of the Carnival and just kind of bounce back a little bit. But it'll be interesting to see him leave Meydan now and what he does when he goes back to Europe, because all of his success has come here at Meydan.
In hindsight, I wonder if Charlie would have wished that they'd skipped Super Saturday with Man of Promise, but then they had to kind of find out what he was, didn't they? Because he was only a listed handicap winner prior to Super Saturday, so it would have been quite audacious to have gone straight to this. So I guess that's why they did what they did, and he's one I'm sure will be targeted at Royal Ascot. And the other thing as well, after his win in that aforementioned listed handicap, he was only rated 105. He did go up a fair bit for that, went up to 115. But yeah, he's come a long way in a short time. Man of Promise now finds himself Group 1 place, so not the end of the world, but frustrating night so far for Charlie Appleby, that's for sure. And yeah, again, I don't know if it is that there's a quicker bit of grass over here, or it's just that's where the better horses were.
We're never going to know.
No.
So there's no point to.
We can ask jockeys. That's the best way of finding out, isn't it? But even they only know if they were on it.
It just looked like a KCU was best today, and I mean the stand side might have helped him a little bit, but I mean he just ran that monster race, and I mean the team rides him with so much confidence. They're such a close knit team. I mean the whole team was at the Breeze Up sale earlier this week together, bonding together, staying together, and the one thing that I've noticed is the horses that seem to run the best are the ones that feel that most love, that group that works together the closest. And this group over here is very tight-knit group.
Yeah, Stephen Thorne is the assistant to Aidan McGuinness. He was here earlier on in the season, and he also runs Shamrock Thoroughbreds, which own quite a few horses in the yard and in partnership and things like that. He's a former Godolphin Flying Start graduate, I believe, and he's been a big factor in Ado's success over the last few years. As I mentioned, it's actually Ado's first success here in Dubai from now 16 starts. That's a fantastic view from our chopper. Quite strung out for a sprint, aren't they?
I do think everybody was trying to figure out who was going to go and who was going to get to the stand side, and I think it affected other horses' strategy over here, which led to maybe an interesting pace situation where Get Smokin kind of found himself on the lead, which we weren't sure if he was going to be able to make it. He made the early running, but unfortunately not the late running.
This is Mr. Merwais Azizi, the founder and chairman of Azizi Developments, the sponsors of our Alquoz Sprint. Many congratulations to owner Gary Devlin, who has been kind of lucky with this horse. But a big supporter of the Ado McGuinness show. There is Ado. He's great fun. He really is.
To the roar of the crowd.
Yeah, there's not much roaring where we are. People might have noticed we've been exiled to the other side of the parade ring, which is quite fun in a way because we're right by the public enclosure and they really do get involved. But I get the impression tonight hasn't been a good one for pick six players, so they haven't been looking all that happy, our Meydan faithful.
I think you can make a case, though, for a case of you. I mean, it wasn't like he was a hopeless long shot. I think he was at 10s early on this morning, and he'd be probably the third or fourth selection for most people.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. He was very solid in here, wasn't he? There was so much to like about the prep run. He would have had probably an easier race on Super Saturday than Man of Promise, so does that angle as well. But I think Man of Promise has certainly proven that he belongs at the top table, which will give Charlie Appleby plenty of options going forward. I'd love to see him go straight to the Platinum Jubilee with him. I reckon he might as well. He's also got La Julia, of course, who he can aim at the King's Stand, so plenty of good sprinters for Charlie. And all is not lost for the Moulton Paddocks team. They have Yabir later on, so could still be a blue winner.
Indeed.
Or even real world, who knows? It's been a surprising night to some extent. Maybe that happens.
And when we look ahead to the next race with the UAE Derby, I think more surprises can follow suit.
Yeah, one of the more open races on the card, the UAE Derby. So there we go, European 1-2. KCU training in Ireland, Happy Romance UK, Man of Promise, Godolphin, so UK/UAE, Naval Crown, America, Good Run, Taxi, Casa Creed, Taxiwala for Qatar, Khuzaam, Doug Watson will be pretty happy with that, I thought, and Mutafawwig, another one for Godolphin, finishing 8th, keeping up the good record of Sobin Through trained runners this evening in finishing in the top half of the field at the very least. So as Chad mentioned, our UAE Derby is up next. And yeah, it's a race that's